We're back, chat. We're so back.
In the 80s, Frank Miller's Daredevil revolutionized the character, but I'm just getting to it now with my fresh Zoomer brain. I want to take you with me and both finish this run, but also see if it's still goated 40 years later. And it's so poetic that the man who helped spark my newfound love for comics is the first run I actually complete. And after the absolute tidal wave that was the last volume where Elektra died, Kingpin's wife is alive, Bullseye's a vegetable, we open to a fourth wall break where Foggy's the narrator? Weird. I love it. This is definitely a pretty silly opener, and I think even though they didn't break up these issues intentionally at the time, of course, it serves us well to ease us back into this world. Unfortunately though, it's more Heather, it's more her company, but hey, they ended up fixing Gladiator, so I think they could make this work too. And speaking of Gladiator, he's like totally reformed and opens up a costume store. I just love that. Like, can we not have that more often? In terms of Foggy being our main character, to be honest, I don't really love him as much as I suspect everybody else does, but at worst, he's inoffensive. In the same spirit, this whole volume is kind of the side story show in good ways and bad, but even though this is complete filler, having it from Foggy's POV is just enough spice to make it work. I love the absurdity of this issue. Like, Foggy gets into this deep shit on this plane and he's like trapped and like, oh, what's he gonna do? And then he just like gets off and the issue ends, and just definitely gave me a good chuckle. The next issue though instantly loses the charm for me. Like, we're still talking about Heather's boring ass company, and honestly I feel like every video I'm like, okay guys, I found the most hilarious villain, but I think I made it this time when we are introduced to Stilt Man. We still got a silly tone, but it doesn't have the same charm the second time around. And the next issue starts the second theme in this volume after side stories, recycling old ideas. Especially in the last batch of issues for Miller's run, I was extremely disappointed at the amount of plot points that get reused, starting with him mysteriously losing his powers. And I complimented the last volume for doing this well, like when they retold Matt's origin with this cool Lovecraftian monster, but here, it's not nearly as creative. It's also like we just read this story beat, like even with him going to the exact same bar to find Stick, who again reappears to help Matt regain his senses. But the plot is just digging up bodies. Literally, they dig up Kirigi's body, that ninja from earlier, to revive, which, putting aside that they can like bring people back from the dead, was Kirigi really important enough to warrant this? I gotta look up some synonyms for recycling, cause like they bring back Black Widow, who unlike most of the pre-Miller characters gets no improvement with his writing. She is still a nothing burger. We really lean back into the ninja stuff, but it feels a little too late to bring up all this after Elektra's already dead. I do think Klaus Janson is doing his best work here though. There are a lot of really nice pages visually that do a lot more with like silhouettes and sound. For example, when Stick is talking to Matt telepathically, he gets attacked by Kirigi, and you only can see that he's gone from Matt's perspective with these like white panels, and it's silly to praise solid white panels, but it is always done so intentionally in this run, it never gets on my nerves. Also, it doesn't bother me, but I feel like Daredevil shouldn't be saying he's scared. Like, isn't that like kind of his thing? I don't know, maybe it's not literal, I don't know. In the next issue though, they're like, Kirigi has failed, and it's just absolutely hilarious how he is so hyped up as a villain. He is immortal, he gets brought back from the dead, he's been alive since feudal Japan, and he does absolutely jack shit in this entire run. I guess I like the ninja action, but I'm just not that interested. And time check, we are nearly halfway through the volume, and I don't have anything interesting to say. We're getting to a point where it might be answered after Miller steps away, but there are just like so many pointless sequences, like when Foggy, of all people, tricks Matt and Heather into breaking up, and I like that they acknowledge Matt hasn't been acting like himself, but honestly, no one in the main gang has. Now let me preface this next part by saying I love Elektra and I loved her finale, but we do not need to be digging up her body, literally. I truly dislike how bloated the scope has gone. Like, we are literally now in the ninja afterlife. This is like Valhalla type shit. And Stick's here and he like sends Elektra back, and it's just gonna be hard going back to Hell's Kitchen with any real stakes. I'm not gonna lie, even the dialogue, which I've consistently praised, has gotten noticeably worse. There are inklings of creativity, like when Matt goes to Kingpin to team up, but they just don't last that long. I would say Elektra's resurrection is the main event of the volume, and it just didn't work for me, I'm sad to say. She's all Gandalf the White now, but compared to the huge potential she had in Man Without Fear, I'm a little disappointed at how few true character traits she gets. Oh, and a stick dies. But what if I told you one of my favorite issues in this entire run was this completely inconsequential filler starring two characters we see once and never again. Miller takes over full artistic duties, and we see the fruits of that when we open to this liminal white void. But it's not. It's a hospital room with Bullseye, who is completely paralyzed, like he has no dialogue, which on the one hand allows Daredevil to be so direct without coming across as lazy exposition. But it also gives such a rich and intimate space for Daredevil to have some truly emotional reflection on the last 15 issues. But the true stars are this kid and his dad. The kid is having kid delusions that he's Daredevil, and you can throw all the ninjas you want at me all day. It will never be as interesting as this. Real characters with complex human traits. But if you were mad at reusing Elektra and Kirigi, why does Bullseye get a pass? Good question, my friend. Bullseye here works because he's not here for fan service. He's here because he's an embodiment of Matt's anger at the man who murdered the love of his life, who has done all of these crimes resulting from Matt's inability to end his life. He is the personification of Matt's golden rule: do not kill. And throughout this issue, we cut back to Matt playing Russian roulette with Bullseye, unsure if he's finally gone past his breaking point. Side note, but they do it with these like nice rhyming panels, which you know I love. I love the absolute terror in Bullseye's eyes. Miller always draws that so well. So the dad tries to threaten this guy at gunpoint. Daredevil comes in and punches him, but his kid sees it and it shatters this binary of good and evil in his mind. If Daredevil punched his dad, then his dad must be evil, which means he must be evil. And it ties into Bullseye since this kid will not stop watching Daredevil's fight with him, desperately trying to piece together some clue until he breaks and shoots up his school, and we just get this beautiful introspection. Matt's dialogue here is so rich. It's not like, oh, well, maybe I should kill people, I don't know. Instead, it's by running around beating people up. Is he fighting violence or teaching it? When the kid pulled the trigger, was he emulating Bullseye or Daredevil? And where does the role of the father come in as Matt reflects on his own abusive father and how complex of a man he was? I can't describe how interesting this issue was to read for exploring violence in such a true way, especially coming off of the ninja afterlife. Dare I say, this is like a top 2 issue in the run. Seriously, give it a read. And in the end, when he spares Bullseye, it's not like, wow, I guess it's not moral to kill people. Instead, it just hammers home how unbearably heavy the weight of being Daredevil is. My god, what a fucking banger. But what if I told you the follow-up to this banger was a what if story? And what if I told you that it was complete dog shit and you should skip it all? And then we have this. I do not know how to describe this issue. Like What If, it has no tie-in to the main arcs, but unlike the good issue, it's bad. I'm not gonna discount the fact that maybe something went over my head, but the art's worse, the dialogue gives me a tummy ache, and I just feel like when people fondly recall this run, there are so many issues they selectively forget, and this is chiefly among them. Now, I have some good news and bad news. Bad news, that was the last issue. Frank Miller's core run, his legendary revitalization of the character, ends with a nonsense side story. I guess contrary to how these volumes are structured, a writer doesn't really get to have a beginning, middle, and end with a character, but I was expecting something, man. The good news is I think they realized that this volume was a little light on content, and they have included Daredevil, Love, and War. Daredevil Love and War is a side story Miller wrote a few years after his run with Bill Sienkiewicz, I hope I said that right, as the artist, and holy fuck, this art is absolutely jaw-dropping. Bill, I love you. The dialogue is also stellar. We are back to peak Miller writing here. I have never just read a comic that looks like this, and after mostly forgettable filler, it's a jolt to my nervous system. So many panels have this beautiful haze, and these soft brushstrokes make every frame a painting really literal. And I peeped the machio, don't worry. I'm not educated to say like what art movement this draws from or whatever, but just inject this shit into my veins. Plot-wise, Kingpin is desperate to treat his wife, who is pretty neurologically damaged from the whole dying thing. So he kidnaps this famous doctor's wife to like force him to empathize with him, because he says basically, if you don't fix Vanessa, whatever happens to her will happen to your wife. It's definitely a slow emotional burn, especially with this like distinct lack of movement. I know it's a comic, there is no movement, but they really want you to focus in on these characters' faces. BRB, gonna make this my wallpaper. And guarding the doctor's kidnapped wife, Cheryl, is the best character, who is also, to my knowledge, original to this graphic novel, which is so fucking impressive. Victor. Victor is one of the most well-written and disturbing characters in all of comics. He steals every page is on. His delusions and psychosis are impossible to look away from. And we have more of that great Miller staple of black panels leaving it up to the imagination, usually when something really fucked up is happening, and it just gets your mind racing to great effect. I can't believe it, but I'm like more interested in this guy than Daredevil, Vanessa, hell, even Kingpin. He is just so lost. I think this archetype, kind of like what Bullseye was prior, is one Miller really writes well. Most of Victor's scenes are just purely him with no external narration, so we just really get the erratic nature of his hallucinations, and the way they do this is they'll often like cut out actions or like entire sequences, how he would space in and out of reality. So like when you turn the page and just see this shit, it makes him feel so much more dangerous. Frank Miller. Why is Matt flirting with a random married woman who is still high on Valium? Frank Miller, do not run away when I'm talking to you, mister. I obviously love Miller's iteration of the character, but I really hope the next writer's take on Daredevil has a better relationship with women. God, but the dialogue and storytelling here are just that good. Like when Vanessa is working with that doc from earlier, she's trying to spell something out and the whole story will keep cutting back and forth right when she's about to get it. And when we finally see that she's trying to spell out escape, you see how devastated Kingpin is, and these fucking moments hit so hard. They are just so well executed, and although there are a handful in the run, it just does not have the special sauce that Love and War does. And slowly seeing Kingpin go from sadness to anger is done so minimally through the art, it's just show not tell at its finest. I just want to savor the art one more time here when they have kind of the dialogue and like the brush kind of fall as Matt does in the scene, and again, it's just using the comic medium to its fullest. Meanwhile, Victor is maniacally chasing after Cheryl to get her back, and it's like straight out of The Shining. It's just extremely suspenseful. I'm sure all of you like Kingpin, especially if you've made it to this part in the video, but if you are not convinced that he is in the S tier of villains, read this. It's just some good ass shit. I'm gonna say something a little bit spicy, okay? Victor and Cheryl here are new characters for me, and just in the last hauntingly intense scene have far surpassed anything Foggy or Heather have done in the 20 issues of Miller's run. I cannot recommend Love and War enough. If this were here by itself, it would be an easy 10 out of 10. And in one last subversion, the graphic novel doesn't end with like a big battle. In fact, Daredevil doesn't even like do anything in the last act. It just kind of ends. The doctor's free, Cheryl's free, Victor's dead, and we finally cut to Kingpin on the last page, repeating his narration from the very first page of the story. I have built an empire on human sin. I am feared by the honest and the wicked. Elected officials obey my will as swiftly as the lowest pimps and pushers. I have everything I desired. The first page turns into, quote, until I met you. But if you turn this page over, that's the story, and it is such an unexpected ending. It sticks with you way more than anything that could have been there. It unironically gave me chills. We get some pretty like meh behind the scenes content, but that's the end of the volume. These issues are so important to Daredevil history, and the highs are so high, but I can't help but look back at this run with ambivalence because of how much filler is sandwiched in those great ideas. Even more so by including Love and War, it's just reinforced this fear I have that a full run can't match a standalone story, and at the very least, it's pretty clearly true for Miller. I'm glad though I can appreciate the run and enjoy Love and War, which is just like peak Frank Miller. Or is it? I want to hold off on any more sweeping dumbass statements until I read Born Again, because I've just heard such great things, and then I'll do a little bit more of an introspection, maybe a little bit of a compilation, who knows. As always, if you have another hero or story you think I should read with fresh Gen Z eyes, drop me a comment and read every single one. As this run ends, another one starts, and that'll be Immortal Hulk next time, so really excited to come back to Hulk for the first time in a while, and if you don't want to miss that, come on board and subscribe. In terms of Frank Miller's Daredevil Volume 3, which by my own arbitrary rules I need to rate including Love and War, makes it pretty difficult. I cannot recommend Love and War enough. It was really shocking to me because on reading lists it's usually like a side story that's like nice to have and kind of optional, but please read it, it's gold. But I would say outside of that, there is maybe one good issue in this entire video. So in the end, these polarizing points have to meet to give Daredevil by Frank Miller, Volume 3, a 6 out of 10. Have a good one. Peace.